The World Cup has come and gone. So many things have happened. We have celebrated, we have enjoyed the games. But was it worth it for Africa to attend this world event? In this video, I want to look at the achievements that African teams managed to score at the World Cup. I will also then look at incidences of racism, unfair play against African countries and African players, and then I will make a conclusion of what I think of the World Cup. From the 1,248 players from 48 teams, Africa had 10 countries representing this continent. Nine out of 10 countries from Africa advanced to the knockout stages, which was a big achievement for African teams, considering all the hurdles and anything that tried to prevent the African teams from participating at the World Cup in the US 2020. Morocco was our best team in Africa because it reached the quarterfinals. However, Egypt, in my own opinion, was not a fair play because I personally think they were robbed. A match against Argentina, we all saw what happened. I don't want to divulge much into that, but I want to say that let's celebrate what Africa achieved at the World Cup. All the teams, including Cape Verde, which had a chance to play against Argentina, play against Spain, and their play was over the board. These teams had to struggle, especially Argentina. Their victory, they had to sweat for it. And with Spain, the 1-1 draw, I think, was a fair result. But Africa, all in all, deserve to be celebrated with all the achievements that we have achieved. And this celebration makes a lot of sense for African children, the young aspiring children who will be playing soccer, will be playing football, because they will have seen role models, people of their own color, playing at a bigger stage. I think this is worth celebrating with all Africans who were part of this World Cup and all the countries that were supporting these 10 countries. Let's celebrate together. However, let's also look at what happened at the World Cup that was not favorable to the Africans at this tournament. I think firstly we'll look at the before, where all African countries and their players had horrible time to get visas and even to get past the immigration officers in the US, Canada, and Mexico. This was a deliberate effort by those in power to disgrace African countries even before the matches. But regardless of that, the African teams managed to overcome and showed up in a very big way, in a way that was not expected, and all the critics were proven wrong with how the African teams played. If I look at different games, I think we all agree that matches like the one Egypt versus Argentina was a daylight robbery, robbing Africa of the next stage of the World Cup. we all saw what happened, and this is a clear indication that something has to change at the World Cup if African countries are to continue participating at this event. If you look at the Ghana match, if you look at the Senegal match, they were all matches that had questionable decisions, both from the referees, from the VAR. It was all questionable decisions, and Africans had to fight for this. But of course, it was already a staged game, so there's not much that we came our way in terms of fair play. So regardless of how smoothly we played as African teams, there were few of these elements that were not fair play rules, and Africa had to be at the receiving end of these unfair fair play approaches at the pitch. What a shame. We cannot forget how the ugly head or the ugly face of racism showed itself at the World Cup. It showed in so many different aspects, and this is not something new, but it was shown at a bigger stage that racism exists and the perpetrators cannot be punished. I mean, if we look at Kylian Mbappe's situation, where he was attacked on the media by someone who just came out of the blue and started to accuse him of not being French enough or abusive language directed towards this young, talented African player who was there to represent the country where he was born. He was there to show his talent, nothing else. But you have someone who comes in, someone with a high title in some governments out there, coming and attacking this young talented player, and nothing happens to this person. What a shame that this World Cup has showed us. And also the incident of ice show Speed being humiliated by Argentina fans. What did he do wrong? He was there to enjoy the football. He was there to enjoy as everybody else. He had a right to be there. He had the money, he had the resources. It's not for free that he went there. He had to spend his money to follow his passion and enjoy, and there's a right to support players that makes him like the match, like the sport. But there he was being abused by so many Argentina fans, and of course nothing has happened to these fans because of their privilege, because of their race. They cannot be punished. All these were shown at the World Cup, and this is the reality, African brothers and sisters. I said in my other video that maybe the World Cup is not for us. Maybe we need to do something about it, because we cannot continue to complain about these things, fully knowing that the people in power are the same people who are doing this to us. Even Doku, a young guy who was expecting his first child, and he chose to be there at the birth of his child, was also abused. Someone even daring to say many players dream to be at the World Cup, and here is a person who's at the World Cup and he decides to go and attend or be at the birth of his child. He was criticized for that. I don't think anyone within their right mind and who know the importance of seeing the birth of your first child would say that. Unfortunately, many of these people don't even have children, so they don't know and they don't value what it means to have a child, especially your first child. This happens once in your lifetime. The World Cup happens all the time. If you have a chance, you can be there 2-3 times. But your first child, this only happened once. And I salute Daku, or Doku, sorry for that, for choosing his child, not the football. And the double standards of FIFA, this is very clear that power, money, and politics control this organization. I'm sure if it was held in Africa, I don't think some decisions that were made by FIFA could have been made, because FIFA always says football is not to be interfered by politics or governments. But we all know what happened in the US. Politics came in, power came in, and the double standards of this organization just leaves a lot to be desired. However, my main focus for this video was to look at, was it worth it for Africa to be at the World Cup? My answer is yes and no. Yes, because now Africa proved the critics wrong. Africa proved that even with very, very remote resources, we are naturally talented and we can go far, regardless of any hurdles that might be put before us, but we can still triumph. So I would say it was good that African countries represented us at the World Cup this year. They did very well, and I can safely say we were above what was expected, and I'm so happy because now we have role models that can inspire young footballers out there in the remote parts of Africa, those who aspire to represent their countries. They know it is possible to reach the big stage. However, on the other side, I still think we as Africans, we need to find an alternative event or World Cup, however we might call it, where we are in charge, because the more we continue to participate in this World Cup in this format with this FIFA and all its leadership in power, I don't think we will go anywhere, and we will keep complaining, and complaining doesn't take us far. And I think in the long run, it just exposes our lack of unity, our lack of organization as Africans to make something bigger that everybody else would want to be part of it. So I would wish that there are like-minded people there, people who are awake, people who have the resources, who will start to think about the future of African football, how we could want to own it and be making decisions for ourselves. This is beyond football. This is about unity. Unity among us as Africans, not just in Africa, but Africans also in the diaspora. We have seen how African players who were playing for other nations, how good they've been played and how good they have helped these teams to reach far. France is one of them. So many Africans in that team, and you saw how good they were and how flowing the game was, thanks to all the Africans in these teams. And any other African teams, in any other African players who were in other teams, Canada, US, and many other nations that had African players in them, you could see how talented they are. But we need these players to support an African initiative where we organize something big like this, where other countries have to play according to our rules and conditions to be part of this tournament. So it is my wish, dear brothers and sisters, my African brothers and sisters, that I'm sure there are people there who might agree with me that we cannot continue to be participating at the World Cup in the way it is now. We need to find better ways so that we don't keep complaining of the same thing and getting the same answers. No. And be humiliated as a race. So that was all I wanted to share with you. If there's something that touched you, please give this video a thumbs up and share with others. And also please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, where I talk nothing but African unity, African love, and African prosperity. I hope to see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching.